I never expected my 28th birthday dinner to feel like a performance, but that was exactly what it was. The private room in the restaurant glowed with soft amber lights, and yet every person at the table felt miles away from me. My mother, Vivian, inspected the placement of the silverware like she was directing a photo shoot. My father, Richard, kept his eyes on his untouched glass of wine. My sister, Brooke, laughed too loudly at her own story about a weekend getaway in Napa, and my grandfather, Walter, watched all of us with that quiet, searching stare he had carried for months. Vivian leaned toward him. "Harper has always been so independent," she said brightly. "She never needed much from us," Brooke added. "Seriously, Harper, you make it work with so little. I could never." I tried to smile, but the words scraped something raw inside me. Walter lifted his glass. That simple movement shut down all the noise. "Harper," he said gently, "tell us how you have used your $1,500,000 trust all these years." The entire table froze. Brooke blinked. What trust? Richard's fingers tightened around his glass. Vivian's face shifted confusion, panic, then a stiff social smile. "Dad, you must mean something else." My voice came out smaller than I wanted. "I don't have a trust." Silence collapsed over us, the kind that makes your heart beat the loudest thing in the room. Walter looked directly at me, his expression falling in slow motion. "Harper," he murmured, "come to my office this week. We need privacy for what comes next." I swallowed hard. Whatever this was, it was not a misunderstanding. It felt like the ground under our table had opened. And for you listening, if you have ever felt something was quietly wrong in your family, stay with me. Sometimes the truth does not whisper, it detonates. The morning after the dinner, I sat at our small kitchen table, staring at my laptop like it might explain what had happened. My roommate, Tessa Monroe, slid a mug of coffee toward me and studied my face. "You look like someone dropped a bomb on your birthday," she said softly. I let out a shaky breath. My grandfather asked me about a trust fund last night. $1,500,000, supposedly in my name. Tessa nearly spilled her coffee. "Harper, that is not a small mistake. I know." My voice wavered, but my parents acted like I imagined it. Tessa hesitated, then reached into a drawer and handed me the envelope she had accidentally opened last week, the one addressed to me from my old college. "I did not want to push this," she said, "but it might matter now." I unfolded the letter. The words hit harder this time, financial aid denied due to high family assets. "My family never paid anything," I whispered. Tessa leaned forward. "Maybe they did, just not for you." The room tilted a little. Memories rushed in working extra shifts to afford textbooks, crying in a bathroom stall when I could not fix my car, telling myself it built character. Tessa reached out, grounding me. "When are you seeing your grandfather this afternoon?" I said. "He told me it needed privacy." She squeezed my hand. "Whatever he shows you, you deserve the truth." I nodded, the knot inside me tightening. The version of my life I had believed for years was already starting to fracture. I drove to my parents' house in Kirkland that morning, needing answers even if I was not ready to hear them. The moment I stepped through the doorway, Vivian swept in like she had been waiting. "Harper," she said sharply. "About last night, your grandfather is confused. Do not encourage him. Confused about what I asked. About a trust fund he claims he created for me." Richard appeared behind her, rubbing his temples. "It was a misunderstanding. Your mother will explain." Vivian shot him a warning look before turning back to me. "You have always insisted on independence. You never needed anything from us." "That is not true," I said, the words escaping harsher than I intended. "I asked for help, plenty of times." Brooke stepped into the hall, tugging a sweater around herself. "Are you two fighting again?" "No," Vivian said quickly. Your sister is just overreacting. I looked at Brooke. Do you know anything about a trust in my name? She blinked, confused. I have never heard of one. Vivian let out a brittle laugh. Of course she has not, because there is nothing to hear. But the edges of her voice were fraying. Richard stepped forward, voice low. Maybe we should talk about this later. No, I said, feeling something old and buried rise in my chest. I worked 3 jobs in college. I begged you to help me buy textbooks. You told me it was not fair to Brooke. Brooke's face flushed. I did not ask for that. I know, I said, but the help always went one way. Vivian straightened her shoulders. You made your choices. Harper, responsibility builds character. I stared at her, realizing something was unraveling behind her eyes, and for the first time, I wondered what she was afraid of. By the time I left my parents' house, my hands were trembling so badly I could barely turn the key in the ignition. Their denials had been smooth, rehearsed, almost practiced like they had spent years preparing for the day someone would finally ask the wrong question. I drove without thinking, the scenes from the birthday dinner looping through my mind, sharper and more painful with every repetition. I remembered Vivian's voice first. Harper's always been so independent, she had said, flashing a polished smile. She never needed much from us. She had said it to the couple seated beside her, as if I were not sitting right there. Then Brooke's laugh, bright and oblivious. You should have come with me to Napa. Mom said the trip would help me reset. Richard lifted his glass then, nodding proudly. She has been under a lot of pressure. She deserved a break. I had pressed my fork into the tablecloth just to keep my hands steady. You have not worked since last fall, I had murmured before I could stop myself. Brooke shrugged. A break is still a break. Vivian cut in swiftly, her tone light but her eyes sharp. Let your sister enjoy her life. Harper, not everything has to be a struggle. My grandfather watched all of it, silent and thoughtful, his gaze shifting between my face and theirs as if he were assembling a puzzle no one else could see. Then, the moment everything fractured, Walter raising his glass. Harper, he said warmly, tell everyone how you have used your $1,500,000 trust across the years. Laughter had sputtered around the table. Brooke swatted her napkin like it was a joke. Richard's glass slammed softly against the wood. Vivian went still, her smile freezing mid-breath. I had looked at all of them and felt every inch of the distance we called family. I do not have a trust, I had said. The silence that followed was not confusion. It was fear. Vivian recovered first, smiling too wide. Dad, she misunderstood. Harper has always been scattered. Walter's eyes never left mine. Come to my office this week, he said. Just you. And do not mention this to anyone. Driving through the misty Seattle streets now, I finally understood that his words had not been a request. They had been a warning. Walter's office sat on one of the upper floors of a glass building near Lake Union. Quiet enough that every thought in my head seemed louder. When I stepped inside, he was already seated with a man I recognized vaguely from family events, Avery Grant, his attorney. Avery stood as I entered, his expression steady and unreadable. Walter gestured to the chair across from them. Sit, Harper. We have a great deal to discuss. My throat tightened. Is this about the trust you mentioned? Avery opened a folder. Your grandfather created a trust for you when you were 4 years old. The initial amount was $1,500,000. I stared at him, but I never saw anything. No letters, no statements, nothing. That is what concerns us, Avery said. Every statement was redirected to your parents' home, at your mother's written request. Walter exhaled, exhaustion slipping through his voice. I trusted them to manage the notifications until you were old enough. Recently, their explanations stopped making sense. Avery slid a preliminary audit across the table. We reviewed 15 years of transactions. A significant portion of the trust was used for house renovations, tuition payments for your sister, travel programs, monthly rent for Brooke's apartment, luxury charges, and multiple personal expenses. I felt something inside me splinter. All that time I worked extra shifts, begged them for help. They said they could not afford anything. They could, Avery said quietly. They simply chose not to. Walter leaned forward, his eyes soft but steady. You deserved better than what they gave you. The question now is what you want to do. I forced myself to breathe. I want everything, every record, every dollar accounted for. Avery nodded. Then we proceed, and they will answer for every choice they made. Walter placed his hand over mine, warm and firm, steadier than I felt. You will not go through this alone. Over the next 3 days, Avery's team worked through the trust records while I tried to keep myself upright. Every time my phone buzzed with an update, my stomach tightened. Tessa found me sitting on the edge of my bed one morning, staring at a spreadsheet Avery had sent. You do not need to understand all of it, she said gently. Just know it proves what they did. I pointed to a line on the screen. This transfer, $30,000. The same month, I cried in a grocery store bathroom because I could not afford a new alternator. Tessa's jaw clenched. Harper, they lied to you for years. Avery called that afternoon. We identified travel expenses, home upgrades, private programs for Brooke. Many transactions were intentionally obscured. I swallowed hard. So this was not incompetence. No, he said. This was deliberate. His tone left no room to soften the blow. Walter came by my apartment that evening. He looked older, heavier, like the truth was aging him in real time. I should have questioned things sooner, he said. I wanted to believe your mother would do right by you. I shook my head. This is not on you. It is, he insisted quietly, and I intend to fix it. The next morning, Tessa helped me dress for the meeting. You look like someone walking into a courtroom, she said. Maybe I am. She adjusted the collar of my coat. Whatever happens in that room, remember this, your life stops belonging to their lies today. I held her gaze, steadying myself. Then let's end it, I said, and walked out the door toward the truth waiting for me. The conference room felt too large, too bright, too cold. Walter sat at the head of the table, his hands folded tightly, while Avery arranged a stack of documents that looked heavy enough to crush someone's future. I took my seat beside them, my pulse thudding in my ears. The door opened. Vivian entered first, shoulders stiff, chin lifted. Richard followed, eyes darting around as if searching for an exit. Brooke trailed behind them, confused and nervous. Vivian forced a smile. Dad, what is this? Dragging us into some formal meeting is unnecessary. Walter did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Sit. They sat. Avery placed the binder on the table with a single, deliberate thud. Brooke flinched. These, Avery began, are 15 years of transactions drawn directly from Harper Lane's trust. Vivian shot forward. I told you he misunderstood. Harper never. Avery continued as if she had not spoken. Year 1, home renovations. Year 3, private programs for Brooke Carter. Year 5 through 7, tuition payments. Year 9, monthly rent for Miss Carter's Bellevue apartment. Year 10, a luxury retreat in Europe. All paid from the trust intended solely for Harper. Brooke's face went pale. Mom, my apartment. Vivian's voice trembled. Sweetheart, we wanted you to have opportunities. Harper never needed. I needed everything. I cut in. I worked nights. I begged for help. And you told me you could not spare $1. Richard swallowed hard. We used it for the family. It was not personal. A laugh escaped me sharp, humorless. When I almost dropped out of college, when I had to choose between food and textbooks, that was not personal. Walter's voice cracked like a whip. I trusted you with her future, and you sold it. Vivian's mask shattered. Dad, please. Avery slid 2 sets of papers toward me. These revoke their financial authority. The second transfers full control of the remaining trust assets to Harper. Vivian lurched to her feet, panicked. Harper, do not sign that. You will destroy us. I picked up the pen. Then you should not have built your life with money that was never yours. And I signed my name. When the meeting ended, Vivian stumbled toward the door, gripping Richard's arm as though the floor had tilted beneath her. He looked hollow, his hand shaking as he pulled the door open. They did not look back at me. Brooke stayed behind. She wiped her eyes, voice barely steady. I did not know. Harper. I knew they helped me, but I never knew it came from something meant for you. I breathed out slowly. I believe you. But believing you does not erase what happened? Brooke nodded, staring at the table where my signature still hung in the air like a verdict. I am sorry, she whispered, for all of it. Avery stepped closer, speaking quietly. They may face civil consequences if they interfere again. We will handle everything from here. Walter placed a hand on my shoulder. You did what had to be done. I stood, the room finally still. It is over, I said. At least this part is. 2 weeks later, I slid the key into the door of my new condo near Lake Union. It was small, simple, mine. The first night I slept there, I woke with tears on my pillow, grief for the life I thought I had, relief for the one I could finally build. Walter visited the next afternoon. He walked through each room slowly, as if blessing the walls. You deserved this long before today, he said. I nodded. I am finally starting to believe that. Later, standing on the balcony, I let the silence settle around me. It no longer felt like abandonment. It felt like a beginning. And if you are still listening, if any part of my story sounds like yours, stay close. Share what you need to share. Someone out there will hear you, the way I finally heard myself.